Phyllis Alvarez, and I'm here today because Mr. Scaris asked me to talk to you about your choices for the Mr. Smith questions. He also asked me to go over some tips that you could use when writing your essay so that you can submit the best essay possible. So let's get started. I've broken it down into two components. The first is the actual essay assignment. So let's look at option one. Option one, was Jefferson Smith too idealistic and naive for a senator in this time period? One that is plagued with political corruption and political machines. Explain and give examples of his idealism and so on and so forth. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to highlight the most important parts of that particular prompt. I highlighted naive. The reason I did that is because some students end up defining a word based on their previous background, but it may not be what is actually correct. So when you have a word in a prompt that is one that you are really not familiar with, your best bet is to go to dictionary.com and find out what the true meaning of that word is. Sometimes words will have several definitions, so if you're familiar with all of them, it will give you an advantage over someone who only addresses one part of that definition. So make sure you're familiar with all of the meanings of a particular word. The second thing you need to pay attention to in this particular prompt is the time period. When you respond to a prompt, you need to respond to all of the prompt. When it's asking you about the time period, it's not asking you about this time period. It's asking you about the time period in which the work was written. When you have that as a focus point, then you can go back into your background knowledge or your prior knowledge, and hopefully you can rely on what you learned in American Lit and hopefully British Lit. Based on when a work was written, you can determine it based on the themes and the ideas and the writing style and the diction that that writer uses. Like if you look at a work by Stephen King and then you look at a work by, say, Edgar Allan Poe, Edgar Allan Poe's work is going to be so much more sophisticated than the work by Stephen King. Yes, Stephen King is going to have longer works, but look at the word choice that Edgar Allan Poe uses. You'll be able to tell that those two pieces of writing were written by two completely different guys in two completely different periods. So you're going to look at what was going on in that period and does it reflect what's going on in that time period. Explain and give examples. Those are my